In my journey to trusting myself more and integrating my trauma, or what I like to call survival mode patterns, into an empowered way of existing, I realized that I was a highly impatient individual. And more honestly, as of this video, impatience is not something that will ever disappear. To me, we often look at impatience as a negative thing, but it's the negative aspects of our existence that are just as important as the positive aspects. It takes one to know the other, I like to say. And so in this case, it takes impatience to know patience. And this video isn't to suggest that you practice patience. It's when we humanize them and treat them equally, we get to be more deliberate about the positive aspects of them collectively. We get to see the positive in the negative. So what about impatience is positive? If you're like me, we tend to get impatient because we process things quickly. When the clarity of that hits, we usually are inspired to take an action step toward having that clarity fully realized. We become very passionate in the pursuit. When we're passionate about something that we're very clear about, it energizes and hyper-focuses us in an almost superhuman way. We not only have the capacity to meet our intended goals, but we go above and beyond what we or others may have assumed was possible. Impatience becomes negative when we allow the triggers from any delays, setbacks, unmet expectations to crystallize and harden in our bodies to cause unresolved grief, leaving us repeating survival mode patterns to cope. We tend to get very restless and become less intentional and more compulsive. In other words, we project our unresolved grief into any unfolding outcomes. For me, my survival mode response was to freeze by the overwhelmingness of it all. My personal experiences have made me keenly aware of so many moving parts in my life. The parts I often focus the most on to assist in reaching a particular goal would not pull through in a satisfying way. This affected my mood as well as my energy levels. In addition, this same effect occurred at the onset of my experience with panic and anxiety attacks. The panic and anxiety symptoms amplified when the unresolved grief was being resisted and ignored. But the moment that fully present attention and deep focused breathing was brought to the grief, with little or no resistance, it lost its momentum and its intensity. This brought up a very real concern. If bringing full attention and presence slows down the momentum and neutralizes the intensity of something, positive or negative, are we even capable of sincere satisfaction, fulfillment, and ease? Storytime. I went to my neighborhood diner late one night for some takeout. As I was leaving to go back home, I had the option to walk, catch the bus, or catch the neighborhood $1 cab. It had been years since those cabs were literally $1. Inflation kept raising the price. We were also in the middle of a very cold New York winter, and anyone who knows New York knows how brutal and long the winter months are. Outside the diner, I wanted my food to stay as warm as possible, so taking the bus or the cab instead of walking was the most convenient option. So I stood at the bus stop. A couple minutes passed and I thought my food was gonna get cold fast standing out there. Then I looked and saw a $1 cab making a turn toward my side of the street, and in huge singer fashion, I vocalized the word miracle and ran over to hail it down. But suddenly I became Mr. Invisible. The cab driver looked straight at me and slowed down. But while looking and ignoring me simultaneously, he didn't stop. He simply turned the corner right past me and kept driving toward the direction I was headed in. That triggered me. And to add insult to injury, a city bus was approaching from the opposite side of the street, and because no one else was standing there at the bus stop, it passed the stop. Okay. I was frustrated at this point. Since the next city bus often took anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour to arrive at a stop late at night, I began the dreaded 30-minute walk down the long sidewalk towards my house while talking and venting out loud to myself, something I did quite often. I'd say, "This always happens to me, man. My timing is always off for everything that I wait for. Am I really this compulsive and impatient? Just when I think I have it, psych, I don't. I feel like I'm always being baited. What's the point of choosing convenience when it's always turning into a big inconvenience?" Yes, I was literally saying all this out loud to myself. I literally didn't care who was watching or listening. Scratch that. I did care a little bit. I had my earphones in my ear, so if anyone saw me speaking like this, they would assume that I was on the phone. I had the tendency to question what I thought was practical logic in everything. I had spent a great deal of my life ignoring my internal radar, obliging someone else's radar, even when it felt arbitrary inefficient, and illogical. Therefore, I enjoyed when things made sense to me. I loved when the external probabilities of life met my internal expectations. When things didn't make sense to me, seemed unreasonable, or did not meet my internal expectations, to go along with the flow of it felt like a chore, and it activated my inner rebellion. So I would whine and bicker and begin questioning and answering the endless whys, whens, and hows in my mind, only to realize that the whys, whens, and hows never announce their moves. They only confirm that they've arrived. That thought alone strengthened my ultimate intention, which eventually made it easier to relax into what felt like a big inconvenience. Then I consciously began to pace my breathing and started having better self-conversation. Perhaps this is divine redirection and protection. Maybe this is an opportunity to check in and connect with my body more. This may be a stepping stone toward expanding my awareness. I'm grateful that I have a warm house to go to. I can always reheat my food in the oven or in the microwave if it gets too cold. I'm grateful that my limbs and organs are functioning at optimal levels to even take this walk. After I had released that anger and that frustration and reframed the way I was perceiving everything, I was beginning to feel a little bit better. Along with the walking, I could literally feel every cell in my body get lighter. Then a phrase popped in my mind. Patience is a choice. But then I sarcastically said to myself, yeah, I made the choice to be patient and at the bus stop, but because I was also impatient, I ran to catch the cab and missed both the cab and the bus. Good choice, Joe, good choice. With each step along the walk, I felt myself accepting the consequences of my compulsive actions while consciously making another choice to be patient. A couple blocks later, another bus pulled up along out of nowhere for me, and with a deep sigh of relief and thanks, I hopped on it and finally made it to my house. That experience went beyond the inconvenience of the bus or the cab's timing. It also went beyond the rightness or the wrongness of any of the compulsive choices I had made. It was an opportunity for me to release the time frames. They have us too focused on our mortality, and it adds to the pressure we put on ourselves to meet internal expectations. In the releasing of that pressure, it placed the idea and the feeling of sincere satisfaction, fulfillment, and ease into a clearer perspective for me. Patience was the commitment to my intention to get home beyond the inconveniences and the pressures I was placing on myself of getting there. I made the commitment to get home no matter what, and the synchronistic intelligence of life honored that with the convenience of another bus to meet me where I was. Not only did I make it back home to my house, my food was still warm and edible. Miracle! We often like to say that we're being tested when things are not going in the ways that we expect them to go. Life is somehow tricking us on purpose. If our innermost desires are already known, it seems sort of childish and obnoxious to keep experiencing undesirable circumstances. Our collective universe is, after all, intelligent and intentional. Intelligence represents maturity, responsibility, and wisdom. Why, in the name of all that's sacred and wise, would we be subjected to what seems like immaturity, manipulation, and trickery? Intelligence in this sense feels narcissistic. It's no wonder most of us have a hard time believing in anything good. It's the reason religious figures get such a conflicting rap, because what's the point? If we have no conscious power over anything that shows up for us, what good does it serve to have, be, do, or acknowledge anything unseen as good? But then on the other side of this coin, if we sincerely desire to have, be, do, or acknowledge the unseen as good, perhaps it feels more encouraging to simply say that not having the physical evidence of our expectations met is a test. We're being tested to see if our hopes and expectations are what we really desire. Most faith-based systems back up this claim. And as a certified spiritual life coach and wellness advocate, I've been very vocal about my experience within the Christian church system. As someone who grew up in a very strict Southern evangelical Christian church, I know firsthand how conflicting the portrait of the Christian God of the Bible is. We are presented with two different portraits of God: the God of wrath and the God of love. The God of wrath is depicted in the Old Testament. If the Jewish believers of that time did not perform certain behaviors to prove their love for God, they would be punished in the most barbaric ways. These behaviors involved following an extensive list of commandments and strict rules and regulations to ensure they had unconditional loving space saved for them in the eternal promised land. But each moment could change the course of how sure that promise was. The process of achieving this would, however, be traumatizing. That would be the chief ingredient of survival mode. God here would be easily described as gaslighting, bipolar, prejudiced, abusive, and narcissistic. We would be damned if we believed him and damned if we didn't believe in him. Then enters the God of love shown through Jesus Christ in the New Testament. Jesus Christ embodied the actions, the thoughts, and the feelings of love. The intention was to clarify the feelings of love to not just the Jewish believers, but all who resonated with the message, rather than limiting the message to just performing certain actions or rituals to prove that love. That action-driven love made this entire existence synonymous with the court of law that we're subjected to, that never changed. The God of love shown through Jesus Christ said, "No, not so. We have never been, we are never being, and we will never be tested." Within the structure of an educational or business institution, the use of the term test would be appropriate for an examination to prove the worthiness of moving through the ranks within those spaces. Test is a contradicting term to use in relation to any philosophies or ideologies within the context of our individual human experiences. It goes against the polarity of the human paradox here. There are no fixed ranks to prove or disprove that we are worthy or unworthy of moving through any of them. The undesired experiences bring awareness. Awareness allows us to see lots of subconscious survival mode patterns for what they are and the active role we've been playing in fueling them. Therefore, we are not being tested. We're being shown how strongly attached we are to the mental, emotional, and behavioral patterns of survival mode within what we are experiencing. These patterns keep us in a perpetual state of fear, lack, and scarcity, many times against our better wisdom. A desperate neediness for instant gratification, instant satisfaction, a neediness to figure everything out and to quickly make it right, or else we will experience dire punishment because it's wrong. And punishment, as experienced through the God of wrath, is usually in the form of unsettling stories of fear projected into any forms of pain, danger, and death. In other words, we're being shown the patterns in which we succumb to the pressures of what we experience. How easily we spiral into the hurt, the disappointment, the stress, and the worry of unmet expectations, the terms and conditions that feel too exhausting to sustain, the deadlines that seem impossible to meet, the loss of people, places, things, and many dreams we have taken great care in nurturing, yet the physical evidence of those dreams feel like they will never be fully realized. None of this feels good. It takes a toll on our energy. The cycle keeps recycling itself in ways we do not often see beforehand, but somehow end up facing, and often at the most inopportune times. The constant jolting of these patterns begin numbing at our senses, affecting our motivation, and slowing us down. Then here enters the negative self-conversation. We call ourselves lazy, incompetent procrastinators. Is it because our focus or efforts are on continually being put into things yielding little or no results? If we want to continue spiraling into the abyss of survival mode, then yes. But if we care anything about our wellness and well-being, then no. Let's reframe this. We are not lazy. We are not incompetent. We are not procrastinating. We simply feel exhausted with these survival mode patterns. How do we interrupt these patterns? Stop fighting and resisting them. Stop guilt tripping and interrogating them. Stop rushing, pushing, and pulling at them. The only way to change our experience with these patterns is to change our response to them. I invite you to recite this with me. It all works out for me. Again, it all works out for me. One more time. It all works out for me. All for me. Whatever it is, yes, it all works out for us. Never against us and for no one else but us. No added explanations, no added questions. There is simply nothing to figure out. It is what it is. Period. Sit in the ease and the stillness of that affirmation. Trust the flow of it in your physical, mental, and emotional body. Only do what makes you feel good within the flow of that stillness. And whatever must be figured out will work itself out and bend to meet you effortlessly without you ever having to know how or why. The famous quote made popular by Nelson Mandela and Marianne Williamson is, "Our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate, but we're powerful beyond measure." That, however, is a deep fear, but it wouldn't be the deepest. I often like to suggest to my clients that the deepest fear is being fully present. Being fully present requires us to live moment to moment, day to day, without thinking or planning too far ahead. This may sound absurd and irresponsible to those with mouths to feed, bills to pay, a popular status to uphold, places to go, things to do. This involves responsible planning. However, planning rooted in survival mode becomes a gateway to controlling the outcomes of what's being planned. it leaves little or no room for the miracle. The perspective in all of this is that challenges, inconveniences, delays, losses, unforeseen circumstances are often disguised as the miracle. Because the only thing that is certain in our collective human experience is uncertainty. Every action step that we take is a probability. The outcome of each step could probably go your way or probably go another way. It's our responsibility to be okay no matter which way it goes. So, when we have not mastered the art of being okay when things do not go our way, it pushes us into the mysterious ground of the right now, present moment, and that's scary. We've been programmed and conditioned to see and know what's going on and immediately correct whatever's wrong, even when we don't know or see the possibilities of correcting what is perceived to be wrong. We simultaneously block ourselves from recognizing that as a survival mode response. Then we turn to coping mechanisms to numb and distract ourselves from the mystery of it all. We're not distracting ourselves from the mystery of anything or from even being present. We distract ourselves from cleaning up the story we've created in our heads about the feeling of fear we're experiencing and the mystery about the mystery. That keeps us from being fully present. Being present is the solution in the uncertainty. Being right here, right now. And right here, right now is the only thing that matters. Let this be an invitation for you to treat yourself kindly and gently in the mystery and allow the next best practical step to light up for you. How will you know it's the right step? You wouldn't have to ask. I'm going to put a pause on this stream of thought in this video right now. If you made it here to the end, I would love for you to share your heart and your thoughts with me in the comment section below about this stream of thought. If you'd like to explore my online life coaching academy, my courses, and my books, please click the link in the description box below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone that you love and care about. In the meantime, in between time, be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself, and make the best of this right now moment and the right now moments to come.